I love technically sound building, and that's always captured my eyes. I've always loved German buildings because they are just so incredibly well put together, like a watch. And I would consider Benson is one of the only curtain wall manufacturer in the United States that can really do a building envelope to that precision.
You would never think when you hear a name like Benson, or when you hear, a company of that type of reputation, that they would be working out of a small office over on off NATO in the Northwest.
I think what distinguishes Benson really is our integrity as a company, and as superficial as that can sound, or whatever you would want to say, it's really true.
They don't really pound their hands on their chest, but they've done such great work. And if you call any architectural office around the world, they all know about Benson.
It's Lou Niles. Lou Niles has done the marketing. He has taken it upon himself to set the tone for the company and to create an environment where this can happen.
We've always, like I said, flown under the radar, and we don't attend trade shows, and we don't do all that kind of stuff. We just do our jobs.
Benson Industries was a glass shop that was started in 1926 in Portland, and it was, from what we know, just Tom Benson, maybe a few employees, and they did flat glass, auto glass, and essentially small residential and commercial buildings. They expanded their scope a little bit and became a distributor in the 40s and the 50s, and then when Lou Niles came onto the scene, he basically brought the company into the heavy commercial construction world, and we started bidding major contracts.
We joke that we were the only company in the curtain wall industry or glass industry that had buying direct from Weyerhaeuser. And if you really had an eye for it, you could see probably the first 8 floors are a little bit different color.
Well, we did certainly a lot of very recognizable buildings, the U.S. Bank Tower, the Coyne Center, a lot of work around Pioneer Place, 1000 Broadway, and then more recently buildings down at the South Waterfront, the John Ross, the Atwater, and in the Pearl District, the Metropolitan and the Edge. Some of these buildings were actually the first fully unitized jobs done in Portland, which was Benson's signature all around the U.S. prior to that.
I think the particular project that changed our company was 777 Tower in Los Angeles. It's a 55-story, fully unitized curtain wall building. Cesar Pelli was the architect, and it's a big project for us.
That was a big leap of faith on the part of the contractor, who we knew from other smaller projects.
Off of that, we ended up doing a lot more work in Southern California and Chicago, and then the big step in New York was the New York Times building. The New York Times building is interesting in a lot of ways. It's designed as supposed to look like a bunch of lines of type, and instead of being white, it's kind of a muddy terracotta, which is the epitome of the gray lady. And lines of print on the side of the building, and then we had the big New York Times sign at the bottom, and we laid that out on the factory floor to do a spell check on the printing, as well as to take a picture of all of our employees. These bolts had to be sandblasted so that they matched the color of the Kynar painted aluminum. This is the kind of detail that you would never get on a normal generic curtain wall building. But you look at a signature building with an architect like Renzo Piano, and they go to the detail of this type of fabrication.
Over the years, the curtain wall had deteriorated, started to virtually fall apart. And finally, the UN decided they needed to rehabilitate the building, but they didn't want to change the appearance because it has this architectural, iconic look. So we designed a high-performance curtain wall system with that's blast resistant.
I was a sophomore at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, maybe 19 or 20 years old, and I was in a second-year design studio, and they showed a black and white 16mm movie of the UN building being installed in 1949, and they were flinging hot molten rivets. It's hard to believe that 60 years later, Benson is recladding that building. Iconic Le Corbusier design. It's world recognizable building.
One thing, you know, that's private, it's not part of the United States. You know, we said, well, the New York Code wouldn't allow us to do this. And I said, hey, the New York Code is not involved in this. This is not New York. This is not the United States. This is the United Nations.
I was in New York City about 11 years ago, and there was this building that I admire on Fifth Avenue. And I said, oh, that's a building that we should really emulate, or as a benchmark for a building. So we had a meeting with Benson, and then I showed them the pictures. He goes, oh, you got to see this building in New York City. This is great. If we could do something like this, it would be awesome. And they said, then they looked at me and smiled, goes, that's our building. So that kind of shows you the reach.
The most unique part of it, it's two buildings with an atrium in between, and the atrium has its glass tension wall on each side. So if you're standing outside the building and looking through the atrium, you can actually see through the entire thing. You see it and you don't see it at the same time when you look at it. It's just glass and cables and these spider arms.
We had a job for a courthouse, and what we were required to do was create the sample with 4 pieces of glass that we tested with bullets, as you can see. And part of what we needed to make sure is that the glass was bulletproof and that the bullet can't get through the glass, which it was. And we found out through trial and error that we needed to add more metal inside of these mullion cavities to actually stop the bullet. So, but that was a good test. This is a job that we're doing right now. It's a curved piece of metal that we made a sample of, because this project, 7 Bryant Park, has a corner that is cone-shaped, and the curve gets bigger as you go up the building.
One particular job that was really a challenge for us was the airport, the Port of Portland headquarters. The inverted slope and the steps, and met with Gene Sandoval over at CGF, and he proposed this curtain wall to me, and I had no idea how to do it at the time.
I remember Benson coming in, and they hired, you know, like typical, they actually hired a person that was just focusing on the 3-dimensional geometry of the project. They came in and they had the whole thing solved 3-dimensionally in the computer. Every bits and pieces of it and resolved, where the geometries are all tied together. And I thought that was pretty incredible for really an engineering company and a curtain wall company to go to that depth.
I would say we made a conscious decision. I mean, Lou and I and some of the other senior management recognized that it would benefit the company, like it does with a lot of companies, to have some diversification within our own core sector, and the obvious way to diversify was to diversify a little bit outside the U.S. market.
It was probably the first high-tech, window wall in Kazakhstan, and probably in the Soviet Union. And they proved that under these difficult circumstances there, they could pull it off.
They even wanted to prime all the metal to apply the ceilings with vodka, because there was a lot of vodka was a lot less more money than the solvents. We had to actually get a report from Dow Corning saying, and so we could show them that you can't use this vodka as a primer. It's not acceptable. Yes, I'm sure our guys that were on site there drank a lot of vodka.
Going back, I remember Phil telling me that he said University of Oregon has an amazing world-class architecture school, and he said, Gene, they deserve a world-class building. And they said, oh my God, this is going to be quite a challenge. I said, yeah, this is going to be even ourselves. And I said, we want to deliver it in a year. And by the way, Howard and Phil Knight really wants this building to be as flat, the glass to be as flat as in big pieces of glass, and as flat as possible. Yeah, and we did it. Many gray hairs, along the way, and sleepless night, but I think we delivered a pretty fantastic building.
I would agree with Phil Knight's comment. I think you need to take some chances, take some risks, and be willing to take some heat to make an architectural statement. You can say that about a lot of buildings around the world, and I think, in a local scale, certainly the work that he has supported down at the University of Oregon is spectacular.
Highly aspirational building, high demands from the client. They wanted to go beyond what's been done before. When we were working together, I kept telling Steve I wanted a piece of curtain wall that's 40 feet high. And he looked at me and said, you are crazy. And I said, no, it's got to be 40 feet high to make this work. And so this is going to be probably the biggest pieces of curtain wall they've ever done. They had semis driving it. They're 40 feet long, 40 feet high pieces and I could only imagine how much they weigh.
I think the panels were in some cases in excess of 30 feet in length. We had to develop special hoisting equipment for them, very large lights of glass, very expansive spans, tremendous amount of detailing, again, packed into a small, tight building.
They also push back, that's for sure. They have backbones, and I can say that for sure.
I felt very appreciative of everything, of small things that most people wouldn't think about. And I think that slides in the business side of being appreciative of the opportunities given to you and taking advantage of them. I think everybody is given opportunities in their life, or not everybody, but most people in business. And if they take advantage of them, things happen. But you have to be careful which ones you try to take advantage of.
That job had a very, very heavy front-end amount of work in engineering. We did a blast mock-up in Socorro, New Mexico, where they actually built a specimen and then subjected it to a blast load, which is essentially a truck bomb. This was the equivalent of an Oklahoma City truck bomb. You would be horrified to think if you were close to that building when this went off. And our specimen basically sustained no permanent damage other than the outboard glass. 2 pieces out of 16 broke, and the inboard glass was in perfect condition.
Thousands of huge pieces of glass and stainless steel that will encase the Freedom Tower in New York City, made in Oregon, being wrapped and ready to ship.
We had a Fortune and curtain wall stacked out in Gresham on Tower 1, and if any of us lost sleep over anything, it was probably protecting that material and the security of that material.
Everyone here in the company was just, and still are, very proud to be involved in the project. Everyone wanted to do something on that building.
Once Warren Buffett buys your company, it speaks about stability. It speaks about a brand that's long-lasting, and it's also about institution. Benson has become an institution, or has been an institution.
We always thought Benson was a good company, but if you're good enough to come up on Warren Buffett's radar and be acquired by Berkshire Hathaway or one of his group companies, that's really an honor. And that's how we feel about it. We're really excited about it going forward.
So I owe him a lot of our success as a company with our projects to their partnership. And I hope they stick around. I hope, and I think they will be sticking around. And I look forward to hopefully more projects with them. Now that they're a big shot, I don't know if they're going to work with us.
Integrity, just basically, that's what we base our company on, is integrity and keeping our word. And if we said we're going to be there, we're going to be there. And no matter what it took to get there, we did it. If it cost us extra money to be there, we were there.
You got to lose those suit and tie. I always tell Lou that these guys look like madmen coming to our office. Take that, Benson.